Hey guys, Hollow1 here. Welcome back to another video, and today, check this thing out. This is a Weaver Models New Haven I-4 Pacific, and it's got some issues with the chuff signal and getting it back to the tender that I'm going to be trying to fix today. So before I get into the repairs, as normal, what is this thing? As I said, this is a New Haven I-4. It's a 462 Pacific, and if somebody who knows the New Haven better than I can tell me why the I-4 is a 462 Pacific and the I-5 is a 464 Hudson, please do, because I'm genuinely kind of curious about that. I'm used to railroads using the letter designation to indicate wheel arrangement, like the PRR Ks. The K class was a 462. The Reading G class was a 462, and I believe the New York Central K class was a 462 Pacific. Somebody can probably correct me that. I'm more of a PRR and a Reading guy, obviously. But yeah, this is really neat. I love the New Haven. I just don't know much about it yet. So the I-4 was the New Haven's primary passenger steam locomotive. They had 50 of them built in Schenectady in 1916, and over the years they received a ton of upgrades, everything from feed water heaters to improved superheaters. They had their air tanks relocated and improved. Air compressors were upgraded over the years. The headlights went from oil to electric. They had a bunch of different tenders on them. I want to say they go from variants like there's an I4, there's an I4A, B, C, D, E, and F. But yeah, there were a ton of different variants of these things, and any one locomotive would have probably received a bunch of different upgrades and a couple different, we'll say, letter designations over the years. So I'm not exactly sure what this one is supposed to be, but I'm gonna do some quick digging and see if I can figure out some stuff on 1389 here. So I can't find anything that gives me sort of pointers to like what letter designation this engine would be. Again, I just did a quick search. If you guys know of any good resources on how to determine what designation this engine would get specifically, let me know in the comments. I'd be really interested. It does have the train stop control box up on the pilot. I think it's got a Type E feed water heater. It's got the big ramp for the air tanks, which are mounted on top of the boiler. And it does not have the train stop control box on the tender, but it does have the smaller tender that seems like it was a carryover from the earlier years. Not exactly sure. But all of that kind of points to it being like some variant from like the early to mid 30s. Again, if you guys know more about the New Haven than I, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But that's kind of what this points to, and regardless of exactly what it is in terms of letter designation or year, it looks absolutely stunning. I think Weaver did a fantastic job recreating this engine. Even from afar, like you can see a whole lot of separately applied pipes and lines, and the bell's offset, and the whistle has a cord going to it. And I think whoever owned this before, my friend who owns it now, did a little bit of weathering on it, and they did it exactly the way that I would have done it, which is like you just do a little bit to make it look like it's regularly cleaned because it is a premier passenger locomotive. But it still has a little bit of like hard water that comes running down from like leaking fittings and stuff like that, and it looks really well done. So yeah, let's take a closer look at this, and then we will start taking it apart and trying to diagnose exactly what's going on here with the chuff. Yeah, here's the fireman's side, and this is what I mean by like the detail is insane. Like, oh my goodness, Weaver. It's so sad that they are no longer in business, but they made some absolutely stunning models. The cab is beautifully done. Here's some of that weathering that I was talking about, where like it's clean, but like you can see some of the streaking here from like the hard water coming out of the dynamo or the whistle bowl. The bell is offset, and I'm just a sucker for that. But that's just, that's the way that they were on the actual models. So, and then there up on the pilot, that's the train stop control box. for the shoreline and I think the Springfield line. And then this up here is the feed water heater. So really, really, really pretty model. My friend brought it to the club layout to run it with some stuff. He was helping me because we usually have two people running and I needed a second person. So he came along, he brought this and fired it up and it sounds fine. And then we went to go move it and it chuffed like twice and then just died. Like it died as in it stopped chuffing. It still runs. It just, no longer chuffed, and I'm not entirely sure why. So, without further ado, here let's take this thing apart and see if we can figure out what exactly is going on. All right, I guess I should first show you guys what it's doing. So let's power it up here, and I think it's engine 1. Yup. Oh, okay. All right. Nope. I'm gonna have to look at the speaker. I forgot about that. That does not sound great. Whistle sounds fine. It's the same sound card that's in my my M1, which is great. Let's step it out here and see what it does. Ugh. Oh, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I'm not sure if you can see or hear it, but it's something is binding in here. Yeah, so I'm not going to run it any more than that. But you could see that it wasn't chuffing, at least not on the halves. And I believe this does have two chuffs per revolution. I think that was what Weaver's standard was. I do have a fancy 4-chuff cam from the project we don't talk about that I may put on here. But I need to talk to my friend first and see if he wants me to do that. But yeah, let's crack this thing open and see. I guess I got to fix that binding issue now. Figure out why the chuff isn't chuffing well, and fix the sound quality from the speaker and the tender if I can. Okay, clean cradle engine. God, this thing is just like. There's the other side of it. This thing is stunning. Like, holy smokes. All right, let's flip this upside down here. This engine does also have the certificate of authenticity, which I've got a couple Weaver models. None of them have it. But this one, the build plate says 70 of 75. New Haven I-4, 3-rail with sound. So, very cool. All right, let's pop off our trucks here. I need a flathead. So I do have a little bit of a suspicion as to what's going on with the inconsistent chuff. Sorry, start that over. My Weaver Redding G2 had this problem where the limit switch needed to be shimmed to actually get the flapper to properly actuate on the cam. And by shimmed, I mean I just bent the thing until it worked. So, yeah, I'm not sure if this is going to be a similar deal. It definitely behaves in a similar manner. Let's make my life way easier and stop doing this the hard way. But yeah, that's my leading theory as to what is going on here. So that's the front truck off. All I need to do is the front truck, and theoretically I should be able to not strip out the smoke box screw. Pretty much all brass models, the way that they're held together is there's a single screw that goes through the steam chest, and then there are 2 screws on the back of the cab. And I really like this assembly method. I think it's way nicer than Lionel's. I haven't really worked on too many MTH steam engines, so I'm not sure how they're held together. I think it's similar to Lionel, where it's just a bunch of different screws. It's similar to a diesel, honestly. And here's what the insides look like. I was recording it, and then my phone ran out of storage, so so I'm just gonna try and figure out a cut between those two shots. But you know, whatever. I did accidentally pull this wire just straight out of the connector. That wire just split in half, so I am gonna need to fix that now. I believe I have the pins to do that, so I'm not super worried there. But yeah, this is the frame. Good old Pittman from Harleysville, Pennsylvania, which I love because it's, you know, semi-local to where I grew up. And yeah, flywheel. It's got a direct drive. Well, I don't want to say direct drive, but it's got a gearbox instead of a belt drive, which I guess belt drives also have gearbox. You know what I mean. It's got an actual drive shaft that goes into a gearbox instead of having a belt. It's got this big lead weight in it, and down here is the limit switch that I'm going to need to take a look at and make sure that the cam isn't broken and see if that's actually engaging correctly. So I guess that's where I'll start here. Let me grab my multimeter, and I'm going to hook up little connectors to each of these pins coming off of the limit switch, and I'm just going to rotate the motor around, and I'm going to see if the limit switch is closing when it's supposed to. Okay, I got my multimeter set to continuity here. Some way, somehow, those alligator clips aren't touching each other. And I'm just going to rotate the motor. Alright, I got a chuff at 6 o'clock. And I got a chuff at high noon. Alright. Okay. Ooh, and that's bound up. Alright. Yeah, I'm not sure why I was getting a signal. Okay, yeah, I gotta fix this binding issue because this is causing all sorts of problems. So, let me diagnose that first, and then I guess we'll come back to this, because I think that's gonna make things way harder. I also need to talk to my friend about new traction tires. Look at those things. Holy smokes. I don't think I have ever seen traction tires that bad that are still on the wheel. That is impressive. Well, there's your problem. That screw is just 100% backing out. So I'm going to tighten that back down, give it some spins, and hopefully that fixes the binding issue. Okay, motor spins a lot more freely now. I have the center pin on this limit switch is just ground, so I just put one on this ground screw over here, and the other one is still on the other pin that has a wire coming off of it. Multimeter set to continuity. Let's spin this thing around and see. One at 12. Okay, one at 9. 6-ish. The one at 9 has me thinking that this has a 4-chuff cam in it. Oh, okay. I'm not sure if you guys can tell what I'm doing, but the frame has a little bit of slop in it. And as I rock the frame back and forth, if I shift it to the left, or if I shift it away from the camera, rather, it closes the switch. And if I shift it towards the camera, it opens the switch. So that, I'm guessing, is our problem. So again, similar to my G2, where the switch just needs to be adjusted a little bit in order to get a better contact. And I've got an idea of how I'm going to bend it to do that, but that's amusing. Oh yeah, also, it has a 4-chuff cam in it, which is incredible, and I'm excited to see what that cam looks like, because it's not original, because Weaver didn't put 4-chuff cams in their models at any point. So Yeah, I'm curious. Let's find out. So limit switch is held on by 2 screws up here. So let's undo those. Try very hard not to lose these tiny little things. And there's our limit switch. And yeah, sure enough, that actually looks like a factory 4-chuff cam. Huh. Interesting. I did not think those existed. Also, I love that shape. Instead of just a square, it's got like these, it looks like a flower, sort of like a 4-petaled flower. Okay. That's cool. So where's the limit switch? Where did you go? There it is. So the way that I fixed this on my other engine was I just kind of bent this down and then over. It's probably going to be easier to show you. But yeah, let me tweak this a little bit so that it gets better contact without being closed all of the time. And yeah, I'll show you guys what it looks like. So there you go. It's tweaked a little bit now. It just makes this a little bit of an S-bend. It's just to bring it down just a little tiny bit, just to close that gap. So let's install this back in and see if that fixed our problem here. Alright, multimeter's hooked up. Let's put it on continuity. It's already beeping. That's fantastic. Alright, so what I have done is I have bent it down too much, and now it's just constantly being closed. So I'm going to bend it up a little bit more, try and flatten it out just a little bit. Again, like it's really, really small adjustments. The other way to fix this is to actually like put a spacer of some kind on the end of the limit switch. Sometimes electrical tape works, but whatever it is that you use, it has to stick in a lot of different like fluids, we'll say. So I originally was using electrical tape on my Redding G2, and over time it just kind of slipped off because it was, you know, covered in oil. So yeah, I'm gonna bend this down a little bit, and I'm just gonna go back and forth until I've got it where it needs to be. One of the cool things about these old limit switches is that you can actually hear them activating and deactivating. So if you're good, you don't even need to hook up the multimeter. You can just kind of hear it. But yeah, so now trying to get a good angle here to hold this. We got one at 6, 3, 12, and 9. And yeah, their activation stroke is a lot longer now. Oh, I need to tweak it a little bit more. It shouldn't be doing that. I don't know what I'm doing to it, but it should not be triggering when I'm just moving things around. Okay, a little bit more tweaking, and then we'll call it good. Okay, got it back up on the test stand now. Let's power it up here and see what it does. Works going forward. Works in reverse. Alright. Cool. That is one problem fixed. Okay, so traction tires. First thing we gotta do is attempt to get this thing off. I'm trying to use the little wrench that it comes with because it's cute and it fits. So pop that off. I believe these should have, yep, they've got segmented side rods, so it pivots on the other driving wheel. For like Lionel models and whatnot, you have to remove all of the screws, or if you're good, you can unscrew the one, bend out the side rod, and slip the traction tire behind it so that it can hook in. But now that that's out, I get the feeling that this is not going to come quietly. So I got my little pick out to try and help it along here. Oh yeah. Also, because it's missing a side rod now, it's not going to rotate the way that you would expect it to. So just keep that in mind, as I clearly did not on that Revolution. There we go. There's one traction tire off. And then it's just a matter of trying to slip the new ones back on. And, you know, depending on who you ask, there's a bunch of different ways you can do this. I'm going to do the way that I'm familiar with, which is just kind of carefully / forcefully wrap it around without snapping off any of the nice detail parts. Okay, I got it. Holy smokes. That's hard. Alright, cool. One down, one to go. And it's just the same process on the other side. It's just a single screw and taking off the old and putting on the new. You do need to be careful when you put these back together that there is this little teeny tiny washer that goes on this screw, and what that little teeny tiny washer does is it prevents the side rod from falling off. It's very important, and it's a very small piece, so you can lose it quite easily. And if you lose it, it's going to be significantly more difficult to run your train because the side rod's going to keep coming off. And I know you guys can't see anything that I'm doing because my hand is in the way, but you get the idea. So I'm going to do that on the other side, and I'll see you guys when that's done. And there we go. 2 fresh new traction tires. I'm curious, so I'm going to throw this on the test stand and see how much smoother it runs, because I'm sure you guys saw in the earlier runnings how it likes to jump, and that's just because, you know, the roller is sinking into the grooves between where the traction tire was still stuck on and where it had fallen off previously. So yeah, I'm gonna throw this on the stand and see what it does. One of the things I'm just now noticing, and I don't know why it surprises me, because clearly the wheels have been repainted because the axle ends are black, but the side rods were also painted. And they are a matching flat black. So I may touch that up a little bit just because it's flaking off in some areas. But first, let's see how much smoother this is. Way better. So I was able to actually get this little connector out, and I'm almost curious as to if I can try to like pry it open and reseat, well, not reseat, but like strip and then recrimp this. I'm gonna give it a try, and if it doesn't work, then I'll just, you know, put in a replacement that's pre-crimped. But I'm curious as to if I can do that. So I actually got fairly close to making this usable. I got the back part opened up, but I couldn't get the center section. So, oh well. I just took another connector and trimmed it real short Soldered it to the existing wire, put some heat shrink on it, and then put it back into the plug, and now we've got a good connection. So with that, I think we're done with the locomotive at this point. So I might do a little bit of servicing on the smoke unit, but I really want to get started on the sounds in the tender because they're less than stellar, we'll say. It would appear that the smoke unit works, so that's convenient. Alright, let's give it one more test now that the shell's back on. Also, that's pretty cool. Yeah, so it's powered up here. Just make sure I didn't mess anything up. Okay, I think we are good. I was about to take the tender apart and realized I'm not missing a stair. It's just completely crushed flat. Like, looks like it was dropped at some point and clipped a table or something. But man, that's rough. I've never seen something mangled up that bad. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to fix that. I'm going to try and straighten it out, but I don't know if there's going to be a whole lot I can do there. Unfortunately, I think doing that and painting it black is probably the best I'm going to get. It at least gives you the idea that there is a stair there. But yeah, I'm bummed out that I can't do more with that. It's if I had an extra brass stair somewhere, yeah, I could probably redo it, but I don't. And I don't think I want to spend the money on that unless my friend wants me to try and repair that. So for right now, it's just gonna sit like that. I'll paint it black when I do my touch-ups. But yeah, let's get back into the tender here and try and fix the sound problem, and we'll start by taking the shell off. So as I was mentioning in the beginning of this video, I think this is it's the smaller tender because these things did have they had big brick tenders and they also had Vanderbilt tenders. So depending on, the variant and the year. But I like this. I like the way that this looks. I know a lot of people probably like the look of the big tender configuration, but I don't know. For some reason, small steam and small engines in general, and this isn't even small steam. This is technically medium steam. It's always appealed to me. And yeah, big tenders are cool, like the coast-to-coast tenders on the PRR M1s, but sometimes when you have a smaller engine like a Pacific, having a smaller tender it looks correctly proportioned. For an M1 where the tender is the size of the locomotive, but it's also a freight engine, that kind of makes sense because, it's pulling a really long train, whereas it's meant for speed, so big tenders equals more weight equals slower. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But anyway, this is open now, just 4 screws in the corners. And this has cruise control in it. And it's got the... I have never actually seen one of these in person. I have only ever read about them and wished that Electric Railroad still sold these. But this is the Electric Railroad Cruise Commander. This is the one that actually has their back EMF cruise control in it. And then this is their old Rail Sounds Commander. Before they did the Rail Sounds Light style cards, they did this. It's the powered motherboard that Lionel produced. It's basically the exact same board. I think it has a slightly better amp, but it's basically the same thing. You just plug a RailSounds 4 card into it, and there you go. And because it's this modular board, you can just swap this out and put something in whenever you want to change the sounds. And it, like, as long as you can find one of these cards that has the sound set that you like, you can put it in. You don't have to fully swap out the boards, and these are about half the price of a RailSounds Lite card or like the modern RailSounds Commander. So yeah, I like this a lot more. I wish Lionel still did something like this so that we could play with our sounds and pick the ones that we want. But they're going more towards, I think, like a DCC style now, where like you can kind of pick sounds. It's still really limited. It's only 5 whistles and 5 bells. You can't like select chuff. You can't change air compressor sound. You can't change individual volumes like you can with CVs and DCC. But it's an improvement. But I still like the old school tech. Anyway, now that I've rambled about that, let's see if I can figure out what's going on. Oh. Is that a rubber band? It looks like an old rubber band. Let's see if I can figure out what's going on with the speaker here. The speaker kind of looks like trash, but whatever. I love Weaver. So, trying to get to the speaker, right? And the easiest way to do it is to remove the RailSounds commander. And the screws to do that are on the bottom. I already pulled out one. The one was here. The other one is underneath these lines that you literally can't see from the side. So unless you have it upside down, you can't see these lines, and they're covering a screw. I love brass engines. So let me go get a tiny little screwdriver and see if I can work that out without snapping those lines off. Also, as I'm looking at this, this wire was absolutely just crushed when they screwed the shell on. It's a motor lead, so it's, I guess, what would that be? Motor positive? Yeah, so it seems to work, so I don't really want to replace it because, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and also voodoo boxes that are Weaver engines. So I'm probably just going to be really careful when I reinstall the frame into the tender shell that I'm not pinching that wire again. But yeah, it seems to run the motor just fine, but definitely interesting. So something to keep an eye on, and if I start having motor problems, I know where to look first. But anyway, now that we're under here, here's our speaker. 8 ohm, half watt, nothing too special or fancy. It sounds like junk, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's a speaker issue or if it's the powered motherboard slash RailSounds commander. So I think I'm going to plug in a different speaker, and I'm going to see how it sounds, and if it still sounds like crap, then I know it's the commander, and if it sounds great, then we know it's the speaker. So I'm going to desolder these leads, hook them up to a different speaker, and we'll see how it sounds. Alright, I've got a known good 8 ohm 2 watt speaker here wired in, and I know it's not going to sound perfect because it's, not baffled, but does it at least sound less like staticky? Answer seems to be no. Yeah, that's not any better. It's weird though, because it's just the idle sounds. Like the whistle sounds just fine, the blowdown sounds just fine. It's just the idle sounds. So I'm wondering if something's wrong with the sound chip as the sticker comes off of it. I'm wondering if it's just something that's like corrupted in the firmware or what. But I'll plug in a different sound card, see what it sounds like, and see if that fixes the problem. I am going to put the wires back on the original speaker though, because now we know the original speaker is good. So I can focus my efforts over here on the RailSounds commander and the sound card. Okay, I got the sound card out of my G2 here. I'm going to try to take off this the sound card that's on here. And we're going to plug in the new one. Well, I don't want to say new, but the less used / fully functional one. I'm going to look down the center and make sure my pins are good, look down each side, make sure I don't see anything that's bent out of shape, and then I'm going to put it on the track and see what it sounds like. Okay, let's see what this sounds like here. Oh yeah. Way cleaner. So it is our OE sound card here. Yeah, okay. So we know that it's this card. Next thing I want to do is I'm going to look at all these pins. I'm going to pop out both the chips. And I want to see if any of the pins are corroded or bent in any way such that it would be making a bad connection for one specific aspect of its functionality. I'm waiting for the comment where somebody's just like, oh, you always rave about these old boards and you say they're so great. Well, now you got one that's bad. Well, clearly the new stuff is just better because the new stuff doesn't fail like this. It's like, guys, this is 20 years old. Like, it's gonna go bad eventually. The new stuff's also gonna fail. We just don't know when. Actually, I've received a couple boards that have failed already, but you know we're not gonna talk about that. But yeah, so if you have seen any of my videos on other TMCC engines where I talk about rail sounds, you can skip ahead a little bit because I'm just going to talk about what this is. For those of you that are new, first of all, welcome. Second of all, what is this thing? So in the early 90s, Lionel patented a modular board configuration for command control model trains. And it actually wasn't Lionel that filed the patent. It was a subsidiary of Lionel at the time called Liontech, which was owned by I believe, a friend of Richard Kuhn, who was the president of Lionel at the time. And they were responsible, they being Liontech, were responsible for the programming, development, and implementation of Trainmaster Command Control and rail sounds. And they developed this system, and this system was used from basically I want to say mid-90s to like 2013, I think was the last year that they utilized this system. I've got some Legacy engines that still use this board, and I believe Legacy debuted in 2012, I want to say. So yeah, they use this into the Legacy era. Now they use the Rail Sounds Lite, or I guess not now. The last version that they used, the one that followed this, was the Rail Sounds Lite configuration, which was used with the RCMC era, is what we call it, and that's what I put in my my SGL Reading G3, if you've seen that video. That's sort of what the majority of the Legacy engines are. And then about the time that they switched from the 6- numbers to the year numbers, so like now we have 2-1 and then a whole bunch of numbers, or I guess this year it would be 2-5 and a whole bunch of numbers. But when they switched over to that formatting, they switched away from the RCMC style board to something that's more similar to DCC. But I talked about that earlier. I don't need to bring that back up, but that's what they use today. So these boards consist of 2 chips. So there's a function chip, or there's a sound chip and a function chip. The sound chip is what holds all of the sound programming. And now both of these chips, you can still buy like drop-in replacements that are similar. If you know how to program EEPROM chips, that's really handy. The sound card here, which hosts the whistle, bell, crew talk, all that fun stuff, this is actually open and you can just copy the code from it. So if you have a reader for it, you can just plug this chip into that reader, take all the code off of it, and then copy it onto whatever other chip you are trying to program. So you can duplicate these to your heart's content. This chip is the function chip. This one is responsible for receiving the serial data from the R2 or R4 LC, which is receiving the radio signals being emitted by your outer rails when it's hooked up to a TMCC command base. It sees those signals, turns it into a serial, and that 8-bit serial is sent all over the place, and one of the places it goes is this card. And when this card or this chip specifically, sees an 8-bit signal that tells it to play a specific sound, it tells this chip to play that sound. So if you press the whistle button, it sends a signal through the serial, or the R4LC sends a signal through the serial comm that comes into this chip. This chip says, oh, I need to blow the whistle now. Hey, sound card, or sound chip, can you play the whistle? And it plays the whistle. And that's how that works. So this chip is the stickler with this kind of stuff, because this one is firmware locked. So even if you have an EEPROM reader and you know how to program EEPROM chips, this one you need a password to actually be able to modify or copy any of the code off of this chip. And this is where people get hung up with duplicating these boards. The specific sounds you can duplicate to your heart's content, like I said. So if you have a chip that you want to sell more of these chips with that sound, you can do that. But you're limited by the supply of these function chips. And unless somebody knows the password to this, or somebody has a way of cracking the password to this, or just knows how to reprogram it from scratch, there's not really a whole lot we can do here. I do have a dream someday of being able to, pre-program this board and do like modern sounds or updated sounds on these old style boards. So if people have specific engines that they want specific sounds on, I can do that. But I need to figure out how to reprogram these in order to make these boards from scratch. So yeah, these ones I just need to figure out how to actually generate the programming that encodes these sounds, which I don't know how to do. But this is years down the road that this is going to happen, if it happens at all. Anyway, one of these chips is probably bad, I would assume. I don't think it's the host board. I do have a spare host board that I could test it with, but I'm sure one of these is bad. It's just a question of which one. So I think I'm going to flip out some of these chips with the spares from my Weaver engine and see which one specifically is the problem and see how much hot water we are in here. So getting these chips out is actually not too hard. I'm going to start with the sound card here. I'm just going to take a little teeny tiny flat blade screwdriver, put it underneath and slowly pry up. Go to the other corner and pry up, and that releases the chip. And then these are plastic casings, so you don't have to worry about, shorting the board in any way if the capacitors still have charge. And then, yeah, this is your sound card. This is where it sits. You can see the little dot on top that tells you which way the top is, and then there's a little arrow inside of the case that tells you which way it orients. The case has this diagonal edge here that's not present on the other corners, and that corresponds with the diagonal corner on the chip. So easy way to figure out what orientation those go in if you accidentally drop it or something. So I'm just going to take the chip out of this guy. This one's going to be more stubborn, isn't it? I've had this one out before, which is why I'm amused by the fact that this is more difficult. There we go. One of the things you do have to be careful of is when you are taking these chips out, you want to make sure that you're not bending these little feet. And if you do bend them, just make sure to bend them back into place. If they accidentally get bridged or something, they can cause all sorts of problems. So make sure that those are good. The ones on this board, or this chip, they all look okay. Nothing looks corroded either. And then inside, that looks good. That looks good. That all looks good. So let's see if putting this chip in here, let's see if this fixes the clarity issue. Okay, let's power this up and see how it sounds. Sounds just fine. Okay. So what that means is that this chip is the one that has failed, because the function mapping chip still works just fine. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do about this. So this is the one that can be copied. I don't really have the equipment to copy it. I do have a working identical sound set to this, but again, without the equipment to actually like initiate the duplication, kind of can't really do anything about that. So I'm going to let my friend know about the issue with the sounds and see what he says and see what he wants to do. But in the meantime, I think I'm going to just put the old sound card back in, and close this thing back up and call it good for right now. Okay, I got parts. So yeah, I got these from the other guys, and yeah, there's a bunch of stuff in here. So you get some insights into some other projects as well every time I do one of these little unpackaging things. But big thing in here is this is a Rail Sounds power supply. This is going into the Atlas RS1 that I blew the sounds up in. And then I've got a whole bunch of sound and function cards. Should have, yeah, so I've got the RS25D25 is the diesel function control chip for the Rail Sounds card, so that's going to go in the RS1. The Alco PA sound card, I actually don't know what this sounds like, so that's going to be an adventure to figure out, but that's also going to go in the RS1 to fix those sounds, since both of those chips are blown on that board, but the host board's good. And then I've got the C-Steam H Lionel trains. Like, it's just another, it's a generic Steam sound chip that I don't know what it sounds like. So I'm going to test that out today. That's probably what's going to go in this thing, unless we decide we want to go really crazy with it. And then the last thing in here is this RS28S03 function control chip for a steam locomotive for TMCC. So this is going to go in my Camelback, my conventional only Camelback, and this is theoretically going to let me finally put an R2LC in it that can control, and like this will let the R2LC control the sounds, and I can finally just have that in command mode, which will be really nice, because that has kind of been a problem with that engine. Like, it runs great in conventional mode, don't get me wrong, but I'd really like my entire fleet to be command, so I'm able to run all my trains in whatever direction I want at any given time. And yeah, so let's open up the C-Steam chip here. Again, I don't know what this sounds like, so we're going to find this out together. It could be good, it could be bad. It was a $5 chip, so I figured, you know, why not? Let's see what this sounds like. Here's the chip. It's actually in really good shape. Clearly new old stock, but yeah. So let me go ahead and crack open the tender here, and I will show you guys, you know, me replacing the chip, and then we'll see what it sounds like. So I'm also working on my dad's mountain class in parallel with this. I don't know which of these videos is going to come out, so maybe spoilers. But it is really nice to see the insides of an engine that, like, everything's easily accessible and it's not all covered in wires and whatnot. Because on the TMCC era stuff that Lionel produced, all of the wiring and all the motor control and all of that stuff is in the locomotive. And the tender is really just rail sounds, which is similar to how legacy engines are today. But, like, because of that, inside of the engine is just jam-packed with stuff. So it becomes a bit of a hassle to work on anything. But here's our sound chip again. I'm going to grab my little screwdriver and pop this out and swap in this, and we'll plug it back in and see what it sounds like. All right, new sounds are in. Let's fire it up and see what it sounds like. So honestly, I really like it. I think it sounds really good. So let's fire it up here, and I'll go through some of the quirks of maybe it's this particular chip. But yeah, let's talk about some interesting stuff here. So let's fire it up. Yeah. So right off the bat, the whistle sounds way better in person than it does on the camera. And I really like it. It's a really pretty. It sounds like a 3-chime. Somebody can probably correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about that. I'm also just now realizing this engine has a cross-compound air pump and a single-action air pump. That's interesting. Okay, well done, New Haven. Anyway, the bell sounds like it's a hand-rung bell, which would make sense for this engine. It does have the cable for the hand ringer, so that I think works well with this engine. There's no crew talk of any kind, so if I hit 2, nothing happens. If I hit 7, nothing happens. It does have a little bit of like steam ambient sounds that you can trigger, so like 6 is I think the same as like the direction change. It's just a little steam hiss, and then 3 is usually like a blowdown sound. Which, like, yeah, maybe. I'm not exactly sure what it's supposed to be, but it's a neat little ambient effect. I honestly don't know what the couplers sound like. I'm just now realizing how short the throw on the rear coupler is. Like, somebody has brought that really far in. That's kind of nice. Coupler sounds is quite nice. Just generic, you know, TMCC coupler sounds, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Now, the really interesting bit for me was the chuff. So if I roll this out here, first of all, the accelerating chuff is a really deep chuff, and it sounds really nice and heavy. It does go into different tones, so you can see as I get up to about a medium speed here, the tone shifts slightly, and it'll shift again when I get into a higher speed. There you go. So yeah, it has 3 different like tones to it. But if I try and slow it down here and I turn down the throttle, I get this. And if I try and speed it back up again, it just goes back to normal. So yeah, not sure why that is. I have never heard that sound come out of an engine. My guess is that there's something else wrong with this particular chip, so that when it's trying to play that sound, the programming isn't quite right, and it's not generating the sound that it's supposed to generate. Without a second chip here to confirm it, I can't really say for sure. If my friend does want to buy this chip, I may be buying a second chip for him so that I can see if it's just this chip, and two, so that I have a spare and I'll keep this one because this one's kind of weird. And I don't mind working around the weird chuff issue. Like whenever I slow it down, I'll just speed it up a tick, and that'll be that. Because it's electric railroad cruise control, the speed steps are pretty small, so you can just turn down the wheel, get the popping sound, and then just turn it up one speed step, and it'll go back to the normal chuff, and you're still at a slower speed. So I don't mind doing that, but I don't want to instill that weird quirk onto one of my friends. But yeah, that's really it. The shutdown sound is very abrupt. Which, like, sure, whatever, I guess. But yeah, that's... Honestly, overall, I think it's a really good sound set for, like, a generic sound chip. I've got no idea what it was supposed to go in from Lionel, but I think it's a good fit for this engine. I did send a clip to my friend, and I let him know about some of the weird quirks about it, and we'll see what he wants to do, if he's going to want to stick with this, or if he's wants to go with, like, a full-blown... like sound card out of some Rail Sounds 4 or 4E or 5 era steam locomotive. So we'll see what he wants to do there. But for right now, I think that's going to be it. Next time you see this engine, I'm not sure, it might be on the layout running, or it might be at a new location. I do want to grab the sound chip out of my M1A and do a sound demo on this with a sound set that was supposed to be in it from the factory, so that I can upload that to my channel, because I like doing sound demos, especially on these weird, like really rare engines that not a lot of people have. And if somebody's interested in buying it, I want them to know what it sounds like. So I may do that. You guys can probably see that as a different video on my channel that may come out before this one. So yeah, I'll let you guys know what's going to happen, and we will go from there. So there's a bunch of stuff happening right now, if you can't tell. I'm trying to fix this because I just found out that the sound card exploded on this, the host board, this thing that hosts the rail sound stuff. That just literally detonated when I bridged an isolating track and accidentally sent power to it. I'm guessing that something about the phasing between two of the transformers on our club layout or something just made this thing want to go kill itself. So yeah, this is now dead. So I'm testing it with the spare one of these that I just have in stock for some reason, and that fixed the problem. So I know it's this board that's bad for that engine. If you notice, this tender is not that's the tender for the New Haven I-4, the one that the video is about. The frame for the G2 is right here. So yeah, there's a bunch going on. I'm trying to fix a bunch of things. So I know I need to order a new one of these, or at least I might be able to just use this one in the G2 if this isn't the problem. But basically, long story short, what happened was I went to go record the sound demo. I took the sound chip out of my M1, put it in this, and fired it up, and it sounded exactly the same as it did with the chip that was in the New Haven i4
to begin with. So it wasn't a sound chip issue, because I know that the sound chip that's in my mountain class is good, and I tested that. I tested the chip that was in this engine in the mountain class, and it sounded just fine. So it's not a chip issue like I had originally thought. So what it actually is either this RailSounds host board, or it's the powered motherboard. So I'm going to isolate one of those two right now. I've got the spare known good RailSounds host board in there with the chips from this engine, or from the I-4, not this. If you can follow along with this, I'm impressed. But yeah, so I'm gonna fire this up, and we're gonna see if this works just fine. Then I know that I need to get two of these, or at least I need to get one more of these, because this is what's bad on the I-4. So yeah, let's fire it up here. Hopefully, if this is the problem, great. If it's not, that means that I need to switch out the powered motherboard, which I also have a spare of, because of course I do. This is out of my Reading T1. I just did the video where I replaced this because it didn't sound the way that I wanted it to sound, with a proper two-board RailSounds motherboard setup. So I do have a spare one of that powered motherboard. I just need to get creative with how I hook up like the potentiometer and stuff, because this one's been modified slightly, if you can't tell. But anyway, let's just get to it here. Let's power it up and see what this does. You guys are going to have a really terrible viewing angle, so my apologies, but at least there's light now. Welcome to the new apartment. Alright, let's see. That's violent, okay. Engine 1? Yep. It's better, I think. There's that high-pitched shrilling sound that my dad's M1 does, too. I wonder if that's a RailSounds card, because I don't think it did that with this card. Anyway, the little bit of static that I'm hearing might just be the difference between the full RailSounds power supply and this. Alright, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this board out as is, put it into my G2's frame, which has a full power supply, and see if it sounds normal. And then I'm probably also going to take the chips out of the good board, put them back into the bad board, put that in my G2 as well, and just confirm that this is in fact the problem. Because I've misdiagnosed this once already, and I really don't want to do that again. So I'm just going to do a whole bunch of testing just to make sure that I have it right this time. Okay, good board with the I-4 chips is in the G2 tender with the full power supply. Let's fire it up. It's still got that staticky thing, so maybe I'm not entirely off my rocker. Maybe there is something with that chip. But it sounds like it does in the other tender, which is good. That's what we want. So let's take the chips out, put them in the bad board, put that in here, and see what that does. Alright. I got the, the I-4 chips in the original I-4 board in the G2 tender with the full power supply. And that sounds fine. Huh. Okay. But now if I just take that board and I put it back in the I-4 tender, so these are the I-4, all of the I-4 components back together. Engine 1. Is it just me, or does that sound better? I gotta go listen to some old videos of this and make sure I'm remembering this correctly, because that sounds fixed, even though I didn't do anything. Huh. So I just went back and listened to the old videos, and yeah, it sounds way better, even though nothing has changed. So, not really sure what that's about. Yeah, I don't know. I got nothing. I don't know why that is. I have changed nothing, and the thing has fixed itself. But sometimes that's just how it goes, I guess. Okay, full setup is back together, literally as it was when I got it. Let's fire it up and see what it sounds like. Way better. Another engine that sort of fixed itself. Lovely. Well, that's convenient, I guess. I got nothing. I don't know why that did that. It just fixed itself. Sometimes these old engines, you start threatening them with replacement parts, and they just start behaving. I don't know why. It just does. This is like the second or third engine now that's done this for me, where I've just threatened to get replacement parts for it, and all of a sudden it starts functioning. It's like, okay, very well then, I guess. But yeah, I guess that's all I got, because I don't know. If you guys have any theories as to what happened here, feel free to let me know in the comments. My best guess is that because this Rail Sounds host board has a much tighter tolerance to those header pins than the board that's currently in there does, when I put this in, it scraped off something on those pins and cleaned up the connection enough to get a good sound. Yeah, I genuinely don't know. So feel free to leave your suggestions down in the comments, and I'll be very interested to see what you guys have to say, because this one is baffling me. So anyway, next time you guys see this engine, it'll have whatever sounds my friend wants to put in it, and it'll be running on the club layout. If he does want to go with the new sounds, I am going to get a different chip, because that one does the popping thing when you turn down the throttle, and I don't want him to have to work around that. I don't mind doing it for my engines, but it's not something that I would willingly and knowingly put into somebody else's engine. So yeah, we'll see what he wants to do. But that's really all I got for you guys. I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you all learned something. This was an interesting one for me. And yeah, anyway, I am CW Hollow One, and have a good day, or maybe good night in your case. See ya. So I'm sitting here recording my sound demo, and decided to start misbehaving again. So if I fire this up now, and now it's working just fine. It's gonna make a liar out of me. So what had happened was I recorded the sound demo, and it sounded just fine. It sounded like you can hear it now. Finished the sound demo, and I was just running the smoke. Out of it, because I don't like putting these things away with even like partially full smoke units. You can see there's still smoke in it because it's now smoking. But I don't like to increase the risk of the smoke fluid coming out of the smoke unit, especially if it's stored for a long period. And as it was just sitting here running, working the smoke out of it, the sounds got all crackly again, and it's fixed itself now, so I don't know what that was about, but that just kind of furthers my thought that this is a bad connection somewhere in either the Rail Sounds board or the speaker. Although we tried the speaker's not it, so it's got to be like a bad pin or something on the header. But yeah, it's fixed itself now again. So I don't know. I was gonna try troubleshooting it, but I don't need to anymore. So I guess I just wait and see if it does it again, and then start doing some more diagnosis, or if I just leave it be and hope that it stays fixed. I don't know.
I'll probably wait a while and see if it comes back. But that's the update. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming.
So they took out the